Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and I hope those all who are arriving from the coffee break will be ready here in the room soon. On September 25th, 2 years ago, 2015, UN member countries adopted a set of goals to end poverty, to protect the planet, and ensure prosperity for all as a part of new sustainable development agenda. And the Sustainable Development Goals, all 17 goals, each goal has specific targets to be achieved over the next 15 years until 2030. And Sustainable Development Goals are a continuation of the previous targets or goals, Millennium Development Goals, what were adopted in year 2000. So, to achieve those great goals, what are described in the Sustainable Development Goals, everyone needs to be part of it. It's governments, it's private sector, it's civil society, and people like you and me. But to get a good introduction for the topic, let's watch the video first.
In the year 2000, leaders from 189 countries agreed on a vision for the new millennium. They wanted to end extreme poverty in all of its forms. So they made a list of 8 goals, called the Millennium Development Goals, and they wanted to achieve these goals in 15 years. One of the leading organizations working to fulfill these goals has been the United Nations Development Program, or UNDP. We're present in more than 170 countries and territories. We championed the goals so that people everywhere would know what they were and how people could do their part. We funded projects that helped fulfill the goals. We helped countries accelerate NDG progress by breaking down the silos and working across sectors. We acted as scorekeeper, helping countries to track progress. As a result, the number of people that live on less than $1.25 per day has dropped by more than half. The number of primary school-age kids who don't go to school, down by almost half. The number of people getting life-saving treatment for HIV increased by over 15 times. Child mortality, down by almost half. As much progress as we have made together, there's still a lot more to do. Over 800 million people are still living on less than $1.25 a day. 1 in 9 people on our planet goes to sleep hungry each night. Deforestation remains alarmingly high in many countries. Oceans are becoming more acidic, threatening food security and marine ecosystems. And about 1 of every 6 adults in the world is illiterate. 2/3 of them are women. We think those are tough numbers, and so do leaders from the countries where we work. So in September 2015, they agreed on a new set of goals to help finish the work we all started in 2000. The new goals are called the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. We have made significant progress in the last 15 years, and we think there's plenty of room for hope, for action, in the next 15 years. Today, the world is more connected by technology. We know more about how to balance the 3 pillars of sustainable development: social progress, economic growth, and environmental protection. However, our climate is changing. Our planet is transforming, and there are more people on Earth than ever before. We at UNDP believe everyone can have enough of what they need living within our planetary boundaries, and we are working around the world to make this happen. Our goals to reach by 2030 are to eradicate extreme poverty, protect our environment, and much more. UNDP has 50 years of experience working with countries to make this a more prosperous, healthy, inclusive, and sustainable world. Join us.
So, as we saw from this video, the goals are really tremendous. And during the last 15 years, we have achieved a remarkable progress, but still a lot to do. And now our question for today's session is that how ICT and e-governance can help us to achieve those very important goals, to eliminate the poverty, to provide better gender balance, to provide access to education and healthcare. So let's start this discussion, and I have honor to invite to the stage Minerva Novero from United Nations Development Program, who has been closely working in the process to develop those Sustainable Development Goals and connect them to ICT. Minerva, floor is yours.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here again. All protocols observed. As Hannes has just noted, underlined, and as we have seen from the video, the challenges are immense. The goals are ambitious. We will recall that the MDGs were just 8. The targets were just about 18. Now we have the SDGs, 17, targets of 169. The indicators, a couple of hundreds, even more. So what do? How can we achieve it all? Can we achieve them all in 15 years? When we launched or adopted the MDGs, we were just beginning to understand the potential of ICTs. At that time, even, only a few people had access to mobile phones, very few people connected to the internet. Now, at the era of SDGs, we can say that has changed a lot. Even in developing countries, particularly in developing countries, mobile phones now are in the hands of even those in remote areas. That has opened up a lot of opportunities for development actors, for governments, for stakeholders to be part of the development effort. Development doesn't happen in New York. It doesn't happen with UNDP alone. Those goals were not set up for achievement by UNDP or the World Bank or the governments alone. It's universal, it applies to all, and we're all needed to make them happen. So, what I'm going to do is just to give you a little bit of an idea of how we approach development, where we are in UNDP. And a lot of you are our partners in this effort, so I don't need to go into details, but just to provide a frame. When we say ICT for development, and this is not a new term, I mean, it's been around for a long, long time, and a lot of you have been part of that journey, especially Estonia and the eGov Academy has been part of that or leading that journey, and many in developing countries as well. It's not just about the adoption of ICTs in various efforts or programs in development. For us, back in the early years, especially when we were developing programs for implementation of the MDGs or achievement of the MDGs, we were thinking that seeing that a lot of the governments, in fact, particularly in developing countries, are still operating in systems and platforms that are outdated. So a lot of the efforts then were about modernizing government. It still happens. And a lot of the modernization efforts that we were seeing were really about e-administration, that we call in our work, which is about the use of technology, ICTs especially, in making sure that the government functions effectively, efficiently, and in a transparent way. And it's a good in itself, it's a value in itself, but it doesn't stop there. We need to do that to enable the government to provide services, online or offline, so e-services. With the advancement of ICTs, it's now becoming more and more possible to deliver services and to make this access to services more equitable. So e-services that we are talking about now is about access to health, access to education, even access to information, also as a service, and access to opportunities. For people to find where the opportunities are, where the jobs are, where investment opportunities would be, where loans are, financial inclusion, and connecting with others, social cohesion. And so it now goes to what we call the e-participation. It doesn't stop there as well. Access to services should now empower the people to do more, to be part of the development effort, and to improve their own lives. So, what do we mean by e-participation? introduction of new technologies, ICTs especially, to enable people to connect to each other, to then connect with their government, and then to, from there, start to transform government itself and transform governance itself. So we're making a distinction between e-government and e-governance. So e-government, we were seeing this or hearing this in an earlier panel, and it's very exciting to hear that here because we are all experts in the ICT field, but our approaches differ. So it's great to have this cross-pollination. But for e-governance, for us, it's a lot more than just about ICTs and making ICTs accessible to everybody to then be part of the game. It's really about transforming the way we govern, transforming the way we develop or do development, transform our societies, transform the world. That's exactly the principle. It's the heart of the 2030 Agenda. It's about transformation. So the goals that we're seeing, immense. 17 and then 169 indicators and how to do it all. Policy, infrastructure, investments, partnerships, not just more partnerships, but really revitalized partnerships. It's underlined in the 2030 Agenda as well. What do we mean by revitalized partnerships? I think we've alluded to that throughout these 2 days, and that means everybody on board with all the potential solutions that you can offer. One of the things that we're seeing with new ICTs in the 2030 Agenda implementation, monitoring and reporting, is the power of data. So data, not just in providing potential solutions. Before you can even design your potential solutions, you need to understand the problem really well. So the challenge for us is to make data now assist understanding of the challenges on the ground, all levels, and in the design, and in the implementation, the monitoring, reporting back, and then informing, once again, the design, implementation, and so on. So it's a loop. It's never just a linear trajectory that you have a problem and you solve it and you're done, and then you have delivered the 2030 Agenda. So in UNDP, it's a huge organization. And the way we approach development, as you have seen in the video, in 3 streams: sustainable development, governance and peace building, climate disaster risk reduction. So huge areas of work. And how we organize ourselves, if I can just share just a little bit of how we work within, then you can start to see how we approach the achievement of the 2030 Agenda. So within my team, governance and peace building, what do we mean by that? So we have responsive, accountable institutions, building inclusive, participatory institutions, making governments effective, efficient, transparent. We have anti-corruption within this team. We have parliamentary reform within this team. We have electoral reform within this team. And we have local governance, urbanization, gender empowerment, conflict prevention, access to justice, access to recourse, and then rule of law, police and justice reform, and so on. In the other wing we work closely with is sustainable development. Under that, then you have poverty reduction. Our ambition now is actually far beyond just poverty reduction. It's elimination of extreme poverty. We have done a great deal from MDGs to SDGs, but poverty remains. Extreme poverty is actually acute in many areas. And even where we have made progress, in certain parts of the world, there is the risk of a lot of people sliding back to poverty, even extreme poverty. It only takes a little disaster, a little danger to then shift people back to vulnerability. A lot of our cities, especially those in the coast, along the coast, only takes a little bit of disaster to wipe out entire communities, wipe out entire businesses, and entire infrastructure. So when we talk about urbanization, we are also talking about how to make our cities more, not just inclusive, but sustainable, but solid. So when we talk about infrastructure of cities, in our time, in this era, we're also talking now about digital infrastructure. So that's something new to policymakers. So one of the things that we are struggling with when we talk to various communities is how to make all this approachable, because policy talk is not, it doesn't really get you much when you talk to people who need to be on board, but come from different angles, right? So one of the things that we did, or I was privileged to be part of, was get on a bus from Ghana to Benin for 3 days, throughout 3 days, and talk to young people who are now our key partners. The youth bulge is immense. In a lot of the regions, youth actually comprise huge numbers, and they're full of ideas. They're eager to get involved in development work, be partners with the government, and provide solutions. So in those 3 days, going from Ghana to Benin, we stopped by communities and engaged with communities on the ground, engaged with local authorities, engaged with government and business. And we discovered a lot of things that we present in policy work in very technical terms. And then we can now start to connect the roles, everybody's roles, in what we call the 2030 agenda. And taking it forward in what we mean by transforming governance and transforming development. I'm not going to go into examples of what we do in UNDP because it will take away from my 10 minutes, and I have 2 minutes as Hannes has warned. And a lot of the things that we do with the government here in the room. So we would rather have the governments themselves speak about these projects and these efforts on the ground. And all the samples are also on our website. But the trends, as I said, we now also have, including with urbanization and more diffusion and the potential of ICTs, we now have more informed citizens. People have more access now to information, more able to mobilize, more able to demand. Governments are facing new communities. And governments are now in a position to also respond better. There was one American politician, I will not name who said that citizens are talking to the governments using 21st century technology. Governments listen in 20th century technology and respond with 19th century policies. So there's a lot to be done. Governments, obviously, it's not true. I mean, everywhere. But just to underline, governments everywhere are also under pressure to address all of these challenges. We put a lot of trust in our government that they have the vision, that they have the plan, they have the strategies. Everybody got on board on this 2030 agenda, but governments alone cannot achieve this. So we can help each other out, that everybody listens, responds, in 21st century technology, and everybody has a role in that. Thank you.
Thank you, Minerva. Excellent introduction to the topic. And now I kindly ask the panelists to the stage, and we have today 5 excellent panelists. We have Minerva Novero from UNDP. We have Honorable Minister Ursuta Owusu-Ekuful, who is Minister of Communication from Ghana. We have Madame Catherine Hughes, who is Minister of Public Telecommunications from Guyana. And we have Honorable Minister Aruna Modibo Toure, who is Minister of Digital Economy and Communication from Mali. So please join us on the stage. And we have ICT policy expert from World Bank, Nairobi, Axel Rifon Perez. So, can you afford it? Yes. Okay. Okay, great. And we propose to organize the discussion in the following way, that I kindly ask all 3 honorable ministers to provide one good sample from your country, how you have used ICT to achieve the development goals or actually eliminate the real problem. Not only build e-government, but connect it to the real problems as we see from slides. It's poverty, hunger, good health, good education, and so on. So let's start from Ghana.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. One example is tough, but I will try. Social progress, economic development, environmental protection are all the aims of our government. And pick one. Our aim has been to stop working in silos and to move towards a more integrated governance system. We started the e-government agenda in 2009. We're still nowhere near getting where we want to be. But in various sectors, and let me just pick financial inclusion and the way it has revolutionized or made it possible for people in the remotest parts of the country to also stay connected. And we used, well, the Kenyan example is the most prevalent one that we all know. But for us, we started small by making it possible for all the telecommunications companies to also provide mobile money solutions. So today, we are working towards making, we have a flagship social protection program called the Livelihood Empowerment Against Poverty, LEAP. We're working towards using mobile money to provide those welfare payments to the most underprivileged across the country. And it is also a way of collecting data from those people. And we actually want to scale it up and use it to even define the ways in which they utilize those monies, so they do not use it for, let's say, frivolous purposes, but use it to really leap out of poverty, lift themselves out of poverty. So we're building a platform which will allow us to monitor the use to which those monies are put. And we can only do that if we have a centralized form of payment. And we've decided that we will use mobile money on a payment system to achieve those results. So for us, that's very critical. And through mobile money payments as well, people across the country can just pay for goods and services all over. But we now want to scale it up and make it possible for all government goods and services to be paid through the mobile money platforms. And we're going to be using we have community information centers that we built across the countries, which we're going to utilize as e-services centers and use that as the focal point for all government services. I mean, you don't have to come to any of the regional capitals to apply for any service. If you go to those CICs, you should be able to get whatever service you want. Now, to make that possible, we need to have a proper e-identity system. And so as a priority for this government, we intend that by the end of this year, and just last night I heard the good news that the company has been selected and been given up to September to come up with one unified ID system for the entire country, which would be the platform on which we would build all these systems, including a digital addressing system to make it possible for us to also leapfrog into the 21st century. Currently, we're still using 19th century technology to work, but we don't intend to do that forever. The difficulty and the challenge has been to encourage people to stop working in silos and to share information, and that is critical. Without that, we would still be engaging in turf wars, keeping our information close to our chest, and not realizing that we're one small part of a whole. Some of us get it, not everybody does. And so in cabinet, you still have a challenge to convince your colleagues that it's okay to open up and share your information. And you might be surprised at how you can get useful information to also help you do what you want to do better, which is the situation I find myself in. But you want to carry your colleagues along and you want to carry the country along. The young people are ready. We have a large literate population. Many of them are technologically averse a little bit and are still getting used to the uses of IT in various parts of our lives. but not just in financial inclusion, in e-education, in e-justice. Our judiciary is also wired up now, and it needs to be scaled up, but we're working in that area as well. But the most significant way in which we have used it is in the Ghana in Integrated Financial Management Information System. So all government payments, procurements are on one platform, which we've been using since 2012. And if you're in a ministry department or agency, and you want to pay your salaries, or you want to pay for goods and services, you have to be on that platform. It's taken some getting used to, but we're getting there.
Thank you very much. Really excellent sample and solving not only one silo problem, but solving problems broadly. But I'd like to comment that working in silos, it's anything or nothing unique for Ghana. It's a common problem for the whole world, not dependent on continent. Okay, great. Thank you very much for this good sample. And let's move now to Guyana. And Minister Hughes, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I think I should start off by mentioning that Guyana is the only English-speaking country in South America. We're at the very top. It was wonderful to meet Ursula, because people always, when I say Guyana, think I'm saying Ghana. So we've been sisters for a while.
You're like twin sisters, more or less.
Exactly. So Guyana has a population of just about 750,000 people. And yet we are on 214,000 square miles. So we're about the size of Great Britain. And the biggest challenge we have is that over 60% of the population lives on a small coastal plain. Our administration is a new administration. We've only been in government 2 years. And the commitment that this government had was to really start to step up the use of ICT in the development of Guyana. So we actually started by creating a Ministry of Public Telecommunications, which deals with the telecoms issues and, of course, ICT development. And that ministry is literally just about a year old. The first thing we did, which I think relates directly to the development of the Sustainable Development Goals and all we've been talking about in this session and earlier, is that we created an e-government fiber optic network. That allowed us to start to put a lot of our ministries and government agencies onto that network. It also allowed us for the first time to connect over 101 high schools and educational institutions, including the 3 campuses of our University of Guyana, onto that network. The challenge that we had is that for many, many years, I'm talking about 20 years, we've had a monopoly in our telephone service. So we've had one US-based company that has had a license to provide landlines and data. We have only one other mobile service, Digicel. So it was very important for us to bring new legislation to the Parliament that started to liberalize the environment so that we can have more players into our market and hopefully reduce the cost of internet access. Internet access, if you're buying it at your home, DSL, will cost an average of $50 a month. And therefore, that's where the issue of poverty comes into play. Because as you can imagine, as I said, the majority of the population is on the coast. So we have all the facilities there. But when you get to about a good 10 or 11% of our population that lives in small remote communities, there's either only one cell phone service or no cell phone service and limited internet access. How does that impact on the SDGs? It means that we have several communities that have insufficient access to education because they may have just 2 or 3 teachers in a very remote, especially in our indigenous communities in some of these hinterland areas. And it means, therefore, the scope of education. We cannot provide the level of education we would like to in those remote communities. And similarly, in the area of health, we have the same kind of challenges. We have a system of regional hospitals and health centers, but then again, you have situations where there are communities where you literally would need to be put into a small aircraft and flown to Georgetown if you have a medical emergency. And that's where, for us, the opportunity to build on our e-government, provide e-services, especially in the area of e-medicine, telemedicine, in the area of online learning, that is imperative to us. So we actually believe that the only way we can transform Guyana is actually moving in this direction. So those are the things we've done. Traditionally, we've been an agriculture-based economy, heavily dependent on sugar and rice, very strong gold mining and diamond mining industry. We're just moved up into the the middle developed category from before a lower developed category. So we're happy about that. And just about a year and a half ago, they discovered one of the largest deposits of oil in Guyana. So we're also excited about that. But it means that there's a lot that we need to do. And we are now trying to get access, create access for more of our citizens. So in addition to the e-government network that's going to provide better government services, we've done that with our passport application and also our driver license application process. But we also are creating what we're calling ICT hubs. An ICT hub is very similar to what we've seen in other presentations, where we go into a community area. It's usually at a post office because they have a good network throughout our country, or quite often it may be at a community center, a vibrant church organization, and we create a room, a safe space that has anywhere from 10 to 15 laptop computers. And it's an area where members of a community that don't have the financial wherewithal to have internet access at their homes can come. We promote the use for young people doing their research. I'm happy to say that even prior to knowing about this conference, we were fortunate to hear about the Estonia example at a conference in Chile, and I was excited about that. And we also have invited Mr. Ott, who's going to be coming to Guyana next month, to advise us. And in that area, I thought it was very important to make sure that he shares the knowledge of Estonia with our cabinet, with stakeholders in the industry, with our civil society, because the challenge for us is to make Guyanese now understand that this is how we can leapfrog development. This is where we can learn from the examples and experiences of so many other countries. So I know there are other speakers. That's Guyana in a nutshell. Great for ecotourism. Please come and visit sometime.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Minister Hughes. And now we turn to Mali, Minister Touré. And English translation from French will be in channel 10.
10.
10, yes, please. Okay, Minister, floor is yours.
Bien, merci. Je remercie toute cette assistante d'être présente ici pour discuter d'un sujet aussi important. Contrairement à mes autres collègues, moi je m'exprimerai en français, qui est quand même la langue officielle de mon pays. Le premier aspect d'aujourd'hui est surtout axé sur le développement durable. Avant de commencer mon propos, moi je reprendrai la définition de 1987 de Brundtland qui disait que le développement peut être considéré comme durable que lorsque les objectifs actuels sont atteints et ne compromettent pas ceux des générations futures de les atteindre. Alors, dans le cas précis de mon pays, nous sommes actuellement dans la priorisation de tout ce qui a trait au développement durable. Mais qu'à cela ne tienne, le Mali est, je dois vous le dire, un des pays les plus vastes de l'Afrique occidentale. Nous avons essayé de mettre en place un programme axé sur le développement durable avec les nouvelles technologies de l'information et de la communication par certaines actions majeures. Parmi ces actions majeures, on peut citer par exemple la dématérialisation de l'archivage numérique qui servira en fait à réduire les coûts en termes de papier et de bois. Ensuite, un autre aspect très important, c'est que nous avons mis au niveau, que ce soit de l'administration, des collectivités décentralisées et des entreprises, un système de réunion, d'organisation de réunions sur place. Ça veut dire quoi? c'est pour essayer de stopper un peu cette prolifération des effets toxiques de l'écologie. Les ministres aujourd'hui font des réunions en vidéoconférence au niveau de leur département ministériel. Et dans les entreprises, les chefs d'entreprise utilisent ce même canal pour leurs discussions et les réunions importantes. Un autre aspect important, c'est que nous avons installé le e-learning au niveau des campus universitaires. Aujourd'hui, il y a un certain nombre de conférences qui sont tenues par le e-learning et les étudiants s'en approprient de jour en jour parce que c'est un élément très important pour éviter tous ces déplacements qui servent quand même à dégager ou à détériorer la sphère. Le dernier élément que je vais prendre comme exemple, parce qu'on discutera après le développement durable d'autres aspects, c'est la télémédecine. La télémédecine dans notre pays sert surtout à préserver la mortalité infantile. Et si je dois prendre le cas de mon pays, ce n'est pas le bon exemple, parce qu'il y a beaucoup de mortalité infantile aujourd'hui. Le projet qu'on a mis en place, c'est l'accès à la téléphonie mobile dans les zones les plus éloignées. C'est qu'aujourd'hui, les médecins qui sont dans les zones rurales arrivent à transmettre les statistiques au niveau central à l'aide du téléphone mobile, que ce soit dans le domaine de la mortalité infantile et surtout les statistiques sur le paludisme. Et le paludisme qui a un effet dévastateur dans nos zones rurales. Et ces éléments réunis ont permis au gouvernement de la République du Mali de faire émerger ce développement durable concomitamment avec l'émergence des outils de nouvelles technologies et de la communication. Je m'arrêterai là. J'ai d'autres exemples précis à donner en dehors du développement durable. Je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup. And now, Alex Perez from World Bank. You are located actually in Nairobi. So, what is the World Bank perspective? How you support sustainable development and through the ICT actions?
Thank you, and thank you, Excellencies. I mean, from a daily journey, when I land in Nairobi, I catch an Uber to go home. I order pizza using Hello Foods. I order a book using Jumia. And then I pay my bills using mobile money. So really, digital technologies are part of our daily life. And how this can be possible? I think Kenya is a very good example because one of the foundations first is, as Excellencies mentioned, is digital connectivity. You need affordable, open, safe, reliable, high-speed broadband in order to deploy e-services. I mean, that's kind of the first foundations. The World Bank has been working in a lot of countries to help countries to design those PPPs using the private sector and also expanding and working on the enabling environment. I mean, you need a lot of competition, PPPs, and working with them. That has been one of the priorities. The second priority will be the digital platforms and digital solutions. And with that, we are talking now a lot about cybersecurity, but also deploying solutions that are tailored to the context. And I think you can also, I mean, there are very good examples in Estonia. We've seen like that there are about 200 million Skype calls per day. But you have also very good examples in Africa, in Latin America, and the Caribbean that you can also build. We've seen very good initiatives in terms of open government, open data in Burkina Faso, e-tax in Ghana. That was a very good example as well. And the World Bank has deployed a digital government toolkit where they look at assessing and supporting countries to understand and to take stock on where they are and how can they move forward towards the next stage of from e-government towards digital government and having all the foundations for that. And for that, you need also the digital enablers. You need also skills development because you are creating also digital divide and digital literacy problems. If you don't give and provide new skills to the citizens, you don't want to have a dual market. That will be one of the areas. Second one will be the support to accountable institutions, and that's why you have open government initiatives, and there are very good examples across all the countries represented here. And finally, you need also to help competition, and you need to have like lower prices and more affordable internet, and that's increasing competition and also using the private sector to roll out infrastructure and giving a role to all the actors. And finally, we're also supporting different countries through a wide range of instruments, such as the Digital Development Partnership as part of the World Development Report that was launched indeed here in Estonia, and also through the digital ID4D program. So basically identification for development jointly with the UN. And there are multiple countries present here that are now working with the World Bank and other organizations to launch this digital ID programs where interoperability and enterprise architecture are really relevant. So overall, I mean, we're happy to work with all the countries. We're happy to create partnerships. We don't think that should be like a standalone mission by the World Bank or by single countries or bilateral partners. I think we all need to work together and to try, as Excellencies mentioned, leapfrog development, and we are ready to work with you and accompany you in this journey that is coming, and we need to embrace it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I heard that our Minister of Foreign Affairs knocking to a door. He'd like to join us in a few minutes also. So to wrap up, it's always the biggest question, what is the main obstacle? We have all good plans, but sometimes we implement them and sometimes we don't implement them. So, dear ministers, from all of you, tell me in one sentence, what has been the biggest obstacle to get there?
For us, I suppose it would be digital inclusion, extending services to every part of the country, rural telephony to the unserved and the underserved areas, and the cost of data. Most people would like to use it, but because of the poverty levels in our country, sometimes it's a bit prohibitive. And then the human resources as well, particularly in the public services. You're scaling up the use of technology in all areas, and yet you'd find that we would train people in the public service, but because of the salary levels, they'll be poached by the private sector. And so it's a constant cycle of having to find ways of attracting and retaining the skilled personnel necessary to take care of the infrastructure we're putting in. And so we've created an IT class within the public service. And in talks with the finance minister that they should be paid a bit more than the regular civil servants, so we'll be able to retain them. But it's a constant struggle for scarce resources. And you have your other colleagues who are more interested in the bricks and mortar of development, not really seeing IT being a critical resource that needs to be prioritized. But it's a constant battle that you're having to engage with the authorities to ensure that you have the budgets necessary to sustain the infrastructure you're putting in. There is no point having your services cut off because you're not paying your bills. And even though we have our own network, which we use for providing these services, we have to buy bandwidth from the private sector, and there are other things that we need to do that we need to pay for. Until recently, the agency, the National Information Technology Agency, which is at the forefront of provision of these services, has had to find resources to pay for it itself. But we've moved to the point where the finance minister understands that it is infrastructure that we're providing for the provision of government services, and so it needs to be paid for by the state, not by the ministries, departments, and agencies themselves, because when it comes to electricity and data or water, they may choose to prioritize electricity over internet bandwidth, and so would not keep up the payments to ensure that the platforms work. That has been a major challenge, but this is how we're working to resolve it.
Thank you. What about
our challenges in Guyana are very similar to that of Ghana. Our major challenge is actually developing the infrastructure. Meaning, to start off, we only have one submarine cable that comes into Guyana. So right now we're negotiating with the private sector to have another one, so we have the redundancy. In many of our hinterland areas, again, we're dependent on LTE towers, on wireless communication. So the cost, microwave, so the cost is a key issue. We are negotiating right now and investigating. Brazil is one of our biggest neighbors to the south. And there's a whole interior hinterland area that would be easily accessible through Brazil. So in terms of, foreign relations, we have good relations with Brazil, and we're looking to ensure that we can bring a little more connectivity. But at the end of the day, ensuring that we can bring internet access to as many parts of Guyana is fundamental, because then so many of the other things and the other platforms that we've started to work on can operate. We have an 85% mobile penetration rate. And therefore, again, the technology allows us the opportunity to be successful in that area.
Yeah, thank you very much, Minister Touré.
Merci. Pour le cas du Mali, je peux vous avouer ici que le problème majeur, c'est l'accès universel aux services de nouvelles technologies de l'information et de la communication. Qu'est-ce que le Mali a fait? Deux éléments importants. Nous avons créé par loi un fonds d'accès universel dans lequel tous les opérateurs de téléphonie injectent des ressources financières qui nous permettra de desservir toutes les zones rurales qui n'ont pas accès aux services de l'information et de la télécommunication. Deuxième élément majeur, le Mali a un projet ambitieux, Mali 2020. Et dans ce projet, je pense qu'en Afrique, nous avons la plus grande large bande de fibre optique qui s'étend sur 9000 km. On a 3000 km de disponibles et l'objectif, c'est de connecter les autres pays de la sous-région limitrophes au Mali à cette fibre optique et permettre les services de l'administration, les collectivités, les sociétés d'avoir une bonne connectivité en termes d'Internet. Voilà les deux grands axes par lesquels nous comptons quand même avoir cet accès universel au TIC. Merci.
Yeah. Merci. Minerva, this is, I think, all what we heard from the minister is matching very well what you just said.
Yes.
We need infrastructure, we need digital infrastructure, and also the understanding of the value of a digital infrastructure is now finally growing in the governments, as it was the problem in international organizations,
Correct. Yes, we were just discussing earlier how even within an organization, coherence is a challenge. So we need to connect more across practices and sets of expertise to work closely together. But if I may raise quickly 3 points in 2 sentences or 3. One, access is critical, as we have heard from the excellencies here on the platform. And we would like to invite a better appreciation of digital divide. When more information and services are now being delivered online, we should appreciate digital divide as more as information divide, service divide, and divides in those terms.
Yeah.
But access alone is not sufficient. Access needs to lead to the services, information, empowerment, engagement with the government, and so on and so forth, to be part of the decision-making processes. And third, impact. You can have the most savvy technology in the world, but if it's not hitting any of the development priorities, you're not transforming lives.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's a good conclusion. And I think all activities what World Bank is supporting in this field are very much connected to the challenges what was mentioned by the honorable ministers, but also solutions. And then good connection is just the beginning, we can say.
Yeah.
It's a good enabler for most of solutions of most of the problems. Not all, definitely. And we definitely do not eliminate the hunger with just providing internet access. It's not that directly connected, but it's one of the most possible enablers for it. And also, I'd like to conclude with one message what was delivered by Minerva Novera also earlier, that the data, what you are collecting through these processes, and what Minister from Ghana just mentioned, that making mobile payments available, but not only paying, but also understanding how the money is later used, definitely in the way that no privacy is touched, but to understand either they just buying another bottle of Coca-Cola or beer for this money, or investing it a little bit to the working tools, it's the question, definitely. And also to understand how we are getting closer to the sustainable development goals. The data, what you are now collecting, is assisting us to understand better how the things are going. We have good example from Indonesia. Even one of the Estonian companies, Positium, is working with them by collecting tourism information to understand better how the tourism is developing by using just the mobile data, not to do hard field work, but understand from the mobile networks already how tourists are moving. So there are endless opportunities, and I'm very happy you are enthusiastic and positive, and international organizations like United Nations Development Program and World Bank are supporting those kind of activities. So thank you very much for very interesting discussion. We wish you good luck. And we really hope that 2030 we can take down those sustainable development goals and everybody is happy. I'm not sure it's happening, but even if we reach half of it, we are already done a lot of work, we have saved a lot of life and bring better life for most of our people. Thank you very much for this discussion.
Thank you.